Hey friend, today is such an exciting day because we are going to be starting fall seeds. Fall is my absolute favorite time to grow here in Florida. Well, kind of like fall into winter, so fall and winter. I mean, I like spring and it does well, but spring always leads into summer, and summer is awful for gardening here. And I know for some of you it might feel a little bit early that we're starting fall seeds because we're still technically in the hottest, is it the hottest month? I think July and August are the hottest months in Florida, and we're starting seeds. Like, how does that make sense? Well, we have to think about these plants are going to be full grown, adult sized, mature plants by the time we hit the cooler weather. So we need to kind of like time it to get it there. So today we're going to be starting a bunch of seeds. I'm going to go into what kind of supplies you need, exactly which seeds I'm starting this week so that you can start them too, how to take care of them after germination, and make sure to stay to the end because I'm going to put a whole list of all my favorite varieties. First time ever I think I've ever done this. So all of them will be up on the screen and you don't want to miss that. So I think we only need 3 things inside the shed. The first one is going to be seed starting mix. I like to use Pro Mix, which is actually a potting soil, but it really does well as a seed starting mix. But Haas also does a seed starting mix, and I'm sure you can find some at your local Home Depot. I'm gonna grab some fertilizer. This is controversial. And then we're gonna need some trays. These are from Epic Gardening. I think everything we're starting is small, so we're gonna start with the 6-cell trays. I'm gonna need some of those. We won't be doing the 4-cell trays. Why did I think I could carry all that in one setting? So we have all of the seeds that we're going to be starting today. We're going to get into that in just a second, but before we do that, we have to get our soil ready. Forgive me, I have to do everything left-handed today because I've been having this issue with my hands, and they just did this steroid injection, and I can't squeeze things. Like it's like very painful. So I'm trying to use it a little bit, but I'm trying not to let it rest. I got a brace coming and everything, so I'm going to be a little awkward. Yeah, just try to ignore that. So I'm going to start out. I have some of the seed starting mix that Haas sent me. I'm going to use some of that first. I'm pouring it into a bucket because we do need to get this stuff wet. I don't think that that's going to make all of the stuff we need for our soil today. So we're going to open up this bag right here. Now some of this is going to sink down once it gets wet, so I am going to overfill it a little bit. Whatever we don't use today, trust me, we're going to be starting a ton of seeds, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, that's good. Let's go get it wet. And you're going to be shocked with how much water it's going to need. Let's start there. You just add a little bit and then kind of move it around. Make sure that it's no longer, like it's not powdery. We don't want powdery, we want kind of muddy, but not so much that if you squeeze it, you're gonna get water out of it. Oh, that's got some water. Okay, that's perfect actually. Let's not do any more. So now that we have this pre-moistened, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that aren't gonna wanna do this part. Maybe you don't have a bucket or a container that you can do this with. You can use a tote, you can use a 5-gallon bucket, you can use there's a lot of things that you can use, but if that's something that you don't want to do, then your other option is to put all of the soil in the trays. Put all this stuff in the trays and then bottom water it and just keep watering it, adding more and more water until there's enough water that stays in the bottom and doesn't get soaked up. It's probably going to take, I don't know, anywhere from 30 minutes to could be like 2 or 3 hours. So sometimes what I like to do is if I'm not going to make the bucket or use this much of it, I'll just fill up the trays with the dry seed starting mix. And then I'll just let it sit in water overnight, and then I'll come out the next day and they'll be ready to plant in. But I feel like this way is better because if you do it this way, you do get better germination rates because the soil does not have any dry pockets. And that's the big problem that happens with some of these germinations is you get these dry pockets. Now the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to put some fertilizer in here. The reason why I'm doing that, I do have like the Pro Mix soil that I'm using, and if you're using that and it's the potting mix, you don't have to do this part. If you're using any potting mix as a seed starting mix, it already has fertilizer in it. But if you're using an actual seed starting mix, or you're using the one that I use, the yellow bag Pro Mix, that's a garden mix, they don't have like a lot of fertilizer in these things. And in seed starting mix, there's zero. It's a sterile environment. So if you don't add fertilizer, then what you're going to end up doing is your seedlings are going to sprout and they're going to grow and they're going to look so happy when they're babies. And then they're going to put on their, I guess usually it's around their 4th leaf set, and then they're going to start showing signs. They're going to start turning yellow, they're going to stunt their growth, they're not going to get any bigger, and it's just going to be like this constant downhill. If you've experienced that, it might be because you didn't feed them. And usually the problem with doing it using like what I just used there, a granular mix, is that takes time to break down. Usually like 2 weeks to break down at minimum. And it's not going to be available right away. So if you notice that your seedlings are having that problem and you haven't fed them and then you give them a granule and they still die, it's because it still takes 2 more weeks for that granular to break down. And in that case, you definitely want to use a liquid fertilizer. That way it's available to them immediately. All right, so our next step is get these, man, it's really hard to switch hands. And messy. Okay, we're gonna get all the soil in these trays and I'll show you how we do that besides this awkward technique that I got going on right now. But we're gonna fill the trays all the way up, and then after I've just thrown them in there, I'm going to like press down, not like super hard, I'm not packing it down, I'm just making sure that there's no like gap in air, and you can already see that there was quite a bit of a gap in air. And so now I'm just gonna gently put soil on top of that. This might be easier with my hands. And then I'm just gonna lift up and wipe off. And we're gonna do that with all these trays. I got all the soil in the trays, and I even put my markers, I use, some popsicle sticks and this little marker. It's called Art Line. Best ones I've ever found. I actually find these things in my bed from years ago with still the marking on them. It's really shocking, actually. I'm so glad I found this. We're gonna start with tomatoes and peppers first. Now let's talk tomatoes, because when you're growing tomatoes in the fall, there's some things that you have to consider, like the style of tomato, whether it's gonna be cherries, grapes, plums, slicers, or beefsteaks, right? The beefsteaks, the further you get in size, like the larger the tomato is, the longer it takes to ripen. If you are south of the I-4 line in Florida, meaning like literally dead center and below, you guys don't get frost. I mean, last winter we did, a few of you got frost that hadn't had frost in like even my lifetime. And so like it's rare, but it does happen. But for the most part, you guys don't get frost. And so you can grow whatever size tomato you want. So you could do the beefsteaks or the slicers. Now, if you are north of that I-4 line, you have to take into account when your first frost date is. I am north of that line, but not by a lot, like maybe an hour north of that line. And I do get frosts, and last year I did get an early frost, like much earlier than I've ever expected, but on average, it's usually like the week of Christmas that we get a frost. So I can usually grow cherries, grapes, some Romas, like the smaller Romas, the quick days to harvest Romas. So when you look at the little back of the seed packet, it says how many days to harvest. So this one says 75 to 85 days. That's good. Anything over 100 I would be more concerned about. And when it comes to slicers, once again, as long as it is under that 70-day window, you're good. I don't even chance beefsteaks. I grow beefsteaks in spring, which has a whole other set of pros and cons, but I grow them in spring. That's my personal preference because I just don't feel like I can get them ripe enough or close to ripe before we have our first frost date. Now, if you're north of me, I'm talking you guys in the Panhandle, Pensacola, I'm looking at you. You guys are like basically opting out of Florida weather during the winter because you're getting snow and stuff crazy. But you guys, you really have to consider your first frost date, which I think for a majority of you guys, you're somewhere in the November timeframe. Although, once again, you could get an early one. And you have to really stick to the cherries, the grapes, or very, very fast days to harvest. I would say 50, 60 days is what you're looking for. And for the most part, that's cherries. And if we have a nice warmer winter, you can keep growing them. They'll keep producing. Now, do I think indeterminates are a good idea versus determinates? I don't know. For south of I-4, absolutely. Grow indeterminates, determinates, whatever you want to grow, you grow. For north of I-4, I lean into determinants, but if I do grow an indeterminate, it's usually on the smaller varieties like the cherries and the grapes. But let me show you how to actually plant them. So the first thing I do is I make a little dent, and it should stay dented if you moistened your soil. If you didn't moist your soil, it may not do that, and you might have to, wait for it to get moistened. And we've got, let's see here, 3 cells is what I'm doing. So we're just making a little dent. I'm probably going a 1/2 inch down. The idea is the seed shouldn't actually be buried that deep, but I'm not going to bury it. So let's start with the first one. And what I like to do, especially with tomato and pepper seeds, because they are so, I don't know, fickle, I think, I always do 2 seeds in each cell. So I'm gonna put 1, 2, and I always do 2 cells. I really only wanna grow 1 of these plants, but just to make sure that I get 1 plant in each, and then I have 1 as a backup. And then all we're gonna do is I'm just gonna like so. I'm not even like full blown going hardcore here, just a little bit. Let me show you the peppers, because it's the same kind of process with the peppers. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about needing a heat mat and keeping them inside under grow lights. I actually don't do that. All of mine, 1, 2, trying to get them in there. All of mine are actually started outside. And I leave them outside to germinate, and then I put them out in the sun. And that has always worked for me. But if you're, you know, in a colder climate, I can understand how you want to do inside grow lights. I understand out here, it gets really, really hot. So a lot of people don't want to start their seedlings out here. But I think if you give them enough shade and sunlight, so you want like 4 hours of sunlight for these guys once they sprout. But when they haven't sprout, you need to leave them right here. Let's get the rest of these in. All right, the next set of crops that we want to plant this month, this week actually, is going to be our brassicas. Now you could totally wait a little bit longer, and usually I have really been leaning more and more towards waiting till September, but I just can't help myself. Now if you're in South Florida, I really encourage you to wait till September, but if you're in North Florida, I would go ahead and start these this month. For the Central Florida, you can pick either or, this month or next month. You will have to baby them a little bit. You're gonna have to make sure that they don't get too much sun. You're gonna have to make sure that, you know, that they don't have any pests bothering them. It's gonna be a little bit of drama starting them in August versus September, but you could totally do these now. Now the good news about all of these is you can succession plant these for the rest of the year, all the way until like February, March, depending on where you live. So you can be planting these, and I encourage you to plant these every single month. We're going to start them in trays right now, but as we head into the cooler season, by the time we hit October, you can actually start these directly. I would not say to start these directly right now because of the heat and because you cannot control the amount of sun and rain and pests in the beds right now. That's why I start mine in trays. The biggest difference between the cauliflower and the broccoli is going to be that cauliflower is a one harvest and you're done, and the broccoli is one where you take the center head and then it's going to create side shoots, which are just like little baby florets or broccoli heads, and then you can take those as like second, third, and fourth harvests. The leaves of both of these are edible, and there is different sizes of head. So if you've grown broccoli in the past and you got a little tiny head, you're probably growing a small or sprouting head broccoli. What you really need to be aiming for is looking for those large headed broccoli and cauliflower of varieties that actually like growing in the heat, so super heat tolerant. The ones that I have liked the most when it comes to broccoli is going to be Green Magic, and when it comes to cauliflower, it's going to be the Snowball. I'm not going to grow the Snowball this year. I would just really love seeing the colors in my garden, and I know the Clementine has done well. Next is going to be celery and Brussels sprouts, and I know Brussels sprouts is actually part of the Brassica family, like the broccoli and the cauliflower, but I treat it differently because I think it more aligns with how celery grows, even though it's not in the same family. So the Brussels sprouts and the celery, when you start them from seed, they do take a long time. The celery is so bad. It takes so long to grow. You're going to be like, what is wrong with this stunted little plant? It's really slow. Let me see the days to harvest. Yeah, this one says 100. I call BS on that. I think it's like way more than that. This one says 90 on the Brussels sprouts. No. These take way longer than that. I mean, like months and months and months. So we do have to start them in August. You don't really have a lot of options here. Now, if you're in South Florida, I don't know if either one of these are the plant for you. Even with the super heat tolerant varieties, which both of these are, they just take so long and they want cooler weather in order to do their thing. I don't know if it's the right move for you guys. Central Florida, we have more of a possibility of growing them, but the further north you get in Florida, the better luck you're going to have with these. But I know people in Georgia that struggle to grow these, and that's way more well, not way more north, but that's a state above us, you know. And if they are going to have struggles, we're going to have struggles. I have tried lots of varieties of both of these, and these are the best I have found, but I would not say at all that these are great. I'm not going to say that these are, you know, hit it out of the park every single year. They do not. Some years I have good, and some years I don't. And when it comes to both of these, interestingly enough, they hate the hot weather, but they want to grow in full sun, which is so hard here in Florida. So we're going to keep them protected when they're younger, which is probably why they're going to take so long to grow. But then once the weather shifts, and I don't mean daytime weather, I'm talking nighttime weather. Once we get into the 60s at night, oh, the glorious day that shall be. Once we get into the 60s at night, these go out in full Florida sun. I mean, 12 hours, whatever you get, put them in a spot that has full Florida sun, and you're gonna have the best luck with these. But they're still gonna be hard and they may fall through, so just be ready for that. Next one on our list is going to be the kale and the collards. There's lots of varieties, and you can grow kales or collards or both. You can even start mustards. What else is there? Like the Chinese cabbages. I wouldn't necessarily start regular cabbages right now. Those are a little bit more heat tolerant, but you can start your kale and collards. This is just like the brassicas when I talked earlier about if you can wait till September, might be a better idea than having to baby them through this. And honestly, I really considered not starting these right now, but once again, I cannot help myself. I am going to be beating myself up later in the month when I'm trying to nurse these little babies, as you know, in and out of sun and making sure that pests don't bother them. I'm going to be, you know, upset with myself. But the cool news is if these fall through, you know, seeds are cheap. Somebody said that once, seeds are cheap, so don't get upset about it. If they fall through, we have until like February or March to keep growing these, so no worries whatsoever. And these are planted exactly like the brassicas, where we make our little dent, we add our seed into our hole, 2 seeds per hole, and then you just gently cover it, and then we're going to keep them moist in a shady spot until they sprout. And once they sprout, then they go immediately out into full direct sun, about 4 to 5 hours a day. The next set of seeds that we're going to be working on is herbs. Specifically, we're going to do a lemon basil, lime basil, and some chamomile. I know some of you have been just astounded that I grow chamomile down here. There's a trick. The trick is don't grow the perennial chamomile. I think it's called the Roman chamomile. I always get this part mixed up. There's Roman and there's Greek. One of them is an annual and one of them is a perennial. We cannot grow the perennial. It just does so poorly down here. But we can grow the annual, and we grow it during spring or fall. It's a little hot right now, but it does work this time of year. And it does seem to live through the winter pretty well, as long as you don't get like super cold temperatures like on the panhandle. The thing to know about all of these, any herb seeds that you're going to start, is we're going to heavily seed them. I am not just going to do 2 seeds per cell. When it comes to like the tomatoes and the broccolis and all that stuff, 2 works fine. When it comes, except for the celery, in case I didn't mention that earlier, the celery I seeded a lot. I just sprinkle. The same thing's going to happen here. I'm just going to sprinkle a good size amount because I want to guarantee that I'm going to get some plants. And I feel like herbs just don't germinate at the same consistent rate that larger vegetables do. I think the smaller the seed, the harder it is to germinate. That's not true for everything, but that seems to be true for herbs and for flowers, believe it or not. So we're going to plant these, and we are still going to do the same planting method like we did with the rest of them. We're going to make the little dent. We're going to drop the seeds in there, but we're going to do a lot, and then we're just going to scuff up the soil versus covering. Because we're using so many seeds, what did they call that? Oh, they call it overseeding. You overseed to ensure that you're going to get some seedlings, and we will have to thin these because of the overseeding. The last set of seeds we're gonna do is flower seeds. There are flowers that really like to grow during our winter months. I'm thinking calendula, they love it. And then there's some flowers that don't necessarily love super cold temperatures, but they like our fall and our spring. That's actually what these are. The snapdragons actually might make it through winter as well. So we're gonna do the snapdragons, we're gonna do petunias and gazania. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. I don't know how to pronounce it. Gazania. I just found these. I grew them inside. I have an arrow garden in my bathroom, and I started growing them like a year or two ago in there, and they're so pretty. And I was like, I wonder if they'll grow here in Florida. And I put some in spring, and it did well. It's actually still alive. It is a perennial. It's still alive. It hates the summer, hates it. But I'm thinking, you know what? I bet you these things will do well in our winter. So we're going to check that out. I don't know that for certain. But when you plant flower seeds, this is different. Some flowers require light to germinate, meaning that when we make our little dent with our marker, we put the seed in there, we don't actually cover the seed. We just make the dent, we put the seeds, and then we water on top of it to let it like touch the bottom of the soil, and the top of the seed is exposed to sunlight. And it doesn't mean direct sunlight. It doesn't mean you have to actually go place these trays out where it's going to get like 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. Having them in a completely shaded spot, as long as it's bright and it's not a dark spot, and as long as the soil is not covering it, making it dark, they will sprout. And I don't always know which flower seeds need light to germinate and which ones don't. Like I know sunflowers and nasturtiums don't need light to germinate, but some of these other ones I can never remember, and I'm not going to memorize them all. So instead I just give them all light to germinate. Now the tricky part about doing this is the fact that when you give them light to germinate, what that means is that the top layer with the seed is going to be exposed to wind and my fans and the heat, and it's going to naturally evaporate the water that you're putting down. So you're going to have to come through here every single day and spritz with a bottle and make sure that you are re-wetting that seed every single day, just lightly, not super deeply, just until it sprouts. And then once it sprouts, then you can kind of push that little soil over the dent so that it covers the remaining part of the seed. Otherwise, you can put them in the bed and start them directly. That's another option. But once again, you're going to have the struggles of that they're not going to germinate well because it's very hot. Pests, animals, birds, everything's wanting to go after these things. And so it's better to keep them protected in trays. Now, if you waited till October, just like we talked about before, if you wait till October, you'll have a better option. And some of these will do perfectly fine through the winter, so you could actually start these a little bit later. But when it comes to some of these don't like super cold weather, just like our tomatoes and our peppers don't like super cold weather, so that we have to start them as early as possible, and starting them in trays as early as possible is the route to go. And we're going to treat them exactly like all the other seeds we started. Now the last one that we have is going to be zucchini, specifically the gray zucchini. And I have started these in trays, and I have done it for a number of years, and they do okay, but it feels like it stalls them and it creates issues with them. So we're going to actually start them in the bed. Never done this. I almost always start them in trays because it's either too hot, too many bugs, or when I start them in spring, it's too cold. But we're going to chance it. Worst case is I have a little bit more time for these. I could start these again in September. So we're just going to start one plant. We're going to see how it does. It'll be a little trial for us, but it also gives me a chance to show you how to start directly in bed. I have some sweet potatoes in this bed right here that are not doing amazing, but they're doing okay. And so I don't want to mess with them. And I have a feeling that they are going to have to grow the entire time until winter comes. So I'm not really worried about planting too closely, but I am going to bring it a little bit away. I'm thinking, okay, there's one, where are they at? There's just one right here, it looks like. So I think I'm going to step back to here so that we're not touching it. And we're just going to clear a spot. And, oh, that's one of the roots of the sweet potatoes. That's okay. I'm going to create like a little bit of a hole right here. Man, that is sandy. Let's go get some of our potting mix. Sand is okay to plant in. It's not that it's bad. It's just right now it's going to have a really hard time holding on to any of the moisture. So what we're going to do instead is create like a little bit of a mound with this potting mix that stays wet longer. And then we're going to take some of this mulch right here and lay it on top just to kind of keep it from losing the moisture. And then we're going to plant 2 seeds. So the mulch is going to help the potting mix hold in some of its moisture since we're in such a hot time. And we're using the potting mix because the sand dries out too quickly. And I'm a little bit of a lazy gardener. I don't want to be out here watering every day. That's my least favorite activity. And now we're going to put 3 seeds. I'm just going to create a little dent. I'm going to put them right next to each other. And I'm just going to put them pointy side down. Guys, I would like to say that means a lot or it matters a lot, but I don't think it really does. I've done it pointy side up. The plant figures out. It doesn't know when a plant dies and drops its seed if the seed is pointing in the right direction. But it could have a little bit harder of a start, and we just want to give it the best start possible. Okay, and I'm just going to use my other plants here to like hold this mulch in place. So I don't want the wind to pick it up and carry it away. So there we go. And that's it for that one. I am going to check on that one every day, every other day, just to make sure that that potting mix isn't drying out, because potting mix, the sand, anything is going to dry out pretty bad this time of year. So we just got to keep an eye on it. But I think that's going to work well. So we got all of our seeds done. What we're going to do now is we're going to leave them under cover here in a shady spot, somewhere that you walk by every single day, so that way you can check on them. If they look like the top are drying out, you can spritz them or water them. You got to keep them nice and moist, especially this time of year. You got to make sure that pre-moistened seed starting mix is pretty wet too, so that it can hold the moisture. Once they do sprout, or at least 50% of them sprout, and what I mean by that, 50% of each tray, not 50% of the whole thing. As each tray sprouts, or at least half of them sprout, you need to go get them out in at least 4 to 6 hours of sunlight. So find a spot in your yard, probably on the east side of your house, where it gets morning sun, because that's probably going to get 4 or 6 hours, and then set them over there. They might be away from you for a little while, but try to put them in a spot that you're going to walk by, or that you can remind yourself, put a reminder on your phone. And they should do well over there. Another thing you can do if you don't want to have to deal with them every day is leave them in a tray like this and put water in the bottom of the tray and leave water in it all the time. It will kind of suck up the water that it needs. I do not recommend that for the rest of the year, but when it comes to summers here in Florida, I do leave my plants in water. Now, when it comes to rain, you don't want these to get rained on, and that is so hard to do. I put mine on the edge of my patio where it gets the sun, but there's still like a roof edging. And you can do the same thing on the east side of your house. If you put them over on the east side of your house to get that morning sun, tuck them up against the house so that the eaves over the top of your house will keep most of the water off of them. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be 100% not watered by the rain, but if you can get a majority of it not wet by rain, and just monitored so that you don't drown the little guys. The other thing you'll have to do is, if you didn't start with fertilizer like we did when we pre-moistened our soil, you are going to have to feed these guys. Once they get their first set of true leaves, you need to start fertilizing them, and you have to use a liquid fertilizer. If you used the granular right when you started, you probably will never have to fertilize them, with the exception of maybe the tomatoes and peppers and the celery, because those things are going to live in these trays for so long until they make it out into the garden. You might have to hit them with 1 or 2 as they get a lot bigger. But the rest of these, I probably will not have to fertilize at all. But if they look like they're stalled or yellowing a little bit or something like that, then give them only liquid fertilizer. Do not give them granular when they're in the trays. They don't have enough time. These are babies. They need to be fed like immediately. If you know, when a teenager's whining and they want food, they can wait a little bit. When an infant is whining and needs food, they cannot wait. They need to eat. These babies, these seedlings are just like infants. So if you give them granular, you're basically telling them you got to wait 2 weeks to eat. Now, a teenager seedling can handle that a little bit. It'll be unhappy, it's going to whine and complain, it's going to look like crap, but it'll bounce back. But a seedling baby will not. It will give up and it'll be out. So make sure that you're keeping them watered and fed. Now for the list, I did promise you my favorite varieties for every single one of the seeds that we planted. I'm going to put that up right here, and you'll be able to see all the varieties that I'm planting myself right now, as well as any varieties I've used in the past that have done well for me here in my Central Florida garden. If you want to see a larger list, make sure to check out my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com. I actually have favorite varieties page out there on the main page. You can click the link and it's going to give you all of them, including all of my favorite fruit trees as well as all my favorite vegetables. And if you want to learn even more, not just how to start seeds, but how to take care of these plants, how to deal with pest, disease management, growing in containers, the best companion plants for these plants, you got to check out my book, The Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide. It's an electronic digital book that you can download and take it out into the garden with you, and it has 30 chapters, 30 different vegetables that tell you everything about growing each one of those specifically to Florida, both North, Central, and South Florida. You can grab that also on my website at homegrownfloridagarden.com. The last thing we need to think about as we're sitting here in August and sweating to death as we start our seedlings is cold protection. For those south of that I-4 line, like we were talking about earlier, you don't really have to worry about this that much. You just don't get frost enough. If you have a frost that's coming, you can deal with it then. But I don't think you're really going to have that much trouble. Anyone above the I-4 line, we do need to think about that, especially my friends up in North Florida. And we need to start considering how are we going to group our tomatoes and our peppers so that way we can protect them all. It's common education not to plant these things together because they attract the same pests and diseases and all these things. But if you don't have the ability to protect your entire garden from a cold snap, you are going to plant these warm weather plants together so that you can protect them. This is just something that we do. And it's not that one plant hates being next to another. There's preferences, right? But they can all grow nearby. That's one little thing that I would say about companion planting is anybody can live next to anybody. I mean, they might be a little whiny about it. There might be some repercussions on related to that. But when it comes to having to protect them in winter, it is best to have those plants that are going to need the protection or ones that you don't want to lose after a cold spell grouped together and start building the infrastructure, whether that's hoop houses, whether that is like a pop-up tent where you can put a frost cloth around it. Just start thinking about that now. I am also going to be thinking about that because this year I am going to do the method that worked for me last year. I had so much cold weather that I got plenty of practice with all the different ways to protect my plants from cold, and there was one way that worked better than any of them, which was doubling I think it was a 0.9, doubling a 2.0 frost cover. I liked Planket, but there's also a white one. As long as it's 2.0, it's also in my Amazon store if you want to check that out. But if you double that one and you put like some sort of structure, whether that's T-posts or bamboo sticks or the little spikes for your tomato plants, and you lift the cover off of the tomato plants and then use Christmas lights, incandescent Christmas lights, to just put all over the tomato plants, that will work. I mean, mine got down to like 15 to 20 degree difference inside of that little tent structure that I built. It worked so well that this year, before we ever get any cold weather, I'm going to go ahead and build out the infrastructure. I'm going to go ahead and put up the Christmas lights. They're just not going to be plugged in. Everything's going to be in place, so the only thing I have to do is toss the frost blankets over it, plug in the Christmas lights, and I'm done. I'm not going to be out here dealing with not only me being cold, but my plants being cold and not have this in play. I want to grow tomatoes through winter. I'm going to do it this year with this new frost protection, so make sure that you do the same. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really had fun getting some seeds started with you. Make sure to head down in the comments and let me know what seeds you're going to be starting right now. And if you're interested in this kind of video going forward where we plant seeds together for every single month or maybe for every single season, head down and let me know. I'd be happy to do those videos too. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Happy gardening and happy fall.